The observation station floated in the cold darkness near Neptune. It had been there for 300 years, watching Earth, watching humans, taking notes, making judgments. Ambassador stood before a massive screen that showed Earth spinning slowly in space. His body was made of living crystal, tall and sharp, catching light in ways that hurt human eyes. He had lived for 4,000 years. He had seen 100 species rise and fall. Humans, he thought, were nothing special. "Show me their file," he said. The screen changed. Data scrolled past. Population numbers, technology levels, military strength, biological information. Read it all with growing boredom. Humans were small. The average human stood barely 2 meters tall. Their bones broke easily. Their skin tore without much effort. They needed to breathe a specific mixture of gases or they died. They needed to eat every few hours or they became weak. They needed to sleep for a third of their already short lives. And those lives were so very short, 80 years, perhaps 100 if they were lucky, had furniture older than that. "Their weapons?" he asked. "Primitive," his assistant replied. "Chemical propulsion, basic energy weapons, no faster-than-light capability without assistance. Their most powerful weapons could perhaps destroy a small moon." Made a sound like wind chimes falling. It was laughter. A small moon, how frightening. He turned to face the Galactic Tribunal. 12 beings from 12 ancient species, each one representing billions of lives. They had gathered to decide humanity's fate. Would humans be allowed to join galactic society? Or would they be left alone on their small blue world, forever ignorant of what lay beyond? "My assessment is complete," announced. "I recommend Category 7 classification, non-threatening, minimal intelligence, limited potential. We should grant them basic trade access and nothing more." The tribunal members nodded. Some of them had already stopped paying attention. Category 7 species were common. The galaxy was full of small, weak creatures who would never matter. "All in favor?" asked. 12 hands, claws, and tentacles rose. "Then it is decided. Humanity is officially harmless." Far away, on a planet the aliens considered unimportant, a woman received the news. Captain Park sat in her office at the United Earth Defense Headquarters Inn. The building had once been a military base, back when humans still fought each other. Now it served a different purpose. Now it watched the stars. Was 42 years old. Her hair was black with streaks of gray that she refused to hide. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. She had served in Earth's military for 20 years. She had seen things that most humans never would. And now she was reading a message from beings who thought her species was worthless. "Category 7, she said quietly. "They think we're nothing." Lieutenant Lee stood across from her desk. He was younger than by 10 years, but he carried himself like a man who had seen too much too soon. His job was to think about things that might happen, to plan for disasters, to imagine the worst. "They gave us 3 trade routes," he said, "and a small station on some moon called Threshold, that's it." "That's it," repeated. Watched her face. He had known for 5 years. He had never seen her this quiet. "You're angry," he said. "No," turned her chair to face the window. Outside, the city of stretched toward the sea. Millions of people living their lives, unaware that beings from distant stars had just declared them unimportant. "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About what they see when they look at us." Stood and walked to the window. "They see small bodies, short lives, primitive technology. They see weakness." "Is that wrong?" Smiled. It was not a happy smile. "They looked at everything we lack. They didn't look at what we have." 3 floors below's office, beneath layers of concrete and steel, there was a room that did not exist on any official map. Admiral spent most of her time in that room. Was 60 years old. She had white hair cut short and a face like carved stone. She had commanded fleets, won battles, and buried friends. She was the most dangerous person on Earth, and almost no one knew her name. When the tribunal's decision arrived, she was not surprised. Category 7, she said to the 12 people gathered around her table, as expected. The people around the table were scientists, soldiers, and engineers. They represented humanity's greatest secret, a project called Ember. They think we're harmless, said Doctor, a thin man with glasses and nervous hands. He was a diplomat by training, but he had learned to be something else in this room. Should we correct them? Not yet, replied. Let them believe what they want. Belief is a weapon, and right now their belief helps us. She pressed a button. The wall behind her lit up with images, shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, factories buried beneath dead moons, weapons that no alien had ever seen. For 50 years we have prepared, said. We watched them watch us. We learned from every probe they sent. We studied their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses, and we built. She pointed to a ship on the screen. It was sleek and dark, designed to be invisible against the blackness of space. They think their sensors can see everything. They are wrong. They think their swarm tactics cannot be beaten. They are wrong. They think their warriors are the strongest in the galaxy. They are wrong. Turned to face her team. Her eyes were cold and certain. We have one advantage that no other species has. They have all seen war. They have all seen death. But none of them have seen what we have seen. None of them have done what we have done. She pulled up images from human history, trenches filled with bodies, cities turned to ash, mushroom clouds rising over burning lands. We have been killing each other for 10,000 years. We have fought in mud and snow and sand. We have invented 1,000 ways to die and 1,000 ways to survive. We have burned our own world and rebuilt it, again and again and again. The room was silent. The aliens think peace made us soft, continued. They think we stopped fighting because we became weak. They don't understand. We stopped fighting because we finally found something worth protecting, something bigger than our nations, our flags, our old hatreds. She smiled. It was the same smile had shown upstairs, not happy, something else. We found each other, and now that we know we're not alone in the universe, we will protect each other against anything that threatens us, anything at all. Looked at the images of alien fleets on her screen, thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, technology that humanity could barely understand. She was not afraid. Let them think we're harmless, she said. Let them ignore us. Let them look away. And when they finally realize their mistake, it will be too late. She turned off the screen. Project Ember continues. Double the production schedule. I want the first fleet ready within 5 years. And if the aliens discover what we're doing? Asked. Looked at him, her eyes were steady. Then we'll be ready for that too. Above them in her office, Park was still staring out the window, had left. She was alone with her thoughts. Category 7, harmless, not worth noticing. She thought about her grandmother who had survived a war as a child. She thought about her father who had worked himself to death to give her a better life. She thought about every human who had ever refused to give up, refused to surrender, refused to die quietly. You made a mistake, she whispered to the aliens who could not hear her. You saw our weakness. You should have seen our will. Outside, the sun was setting over. The sky turned red and gold, like fire spreading across the horizon. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity's future was being built, one secret ship at a time. The aliens believed they knew what humans were. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 5 years had passed since the tribunal's decision. Humanity had accepted their place in the galaxy quietly. They traded on the routes they were given. They worked on the stations they were allowed. They smiled and nodded and said thank you. The galaxy forgot about them almost immediately. Was a mining colony on the edge of nowhere. The planet had no real name, just a number that no one remembered. but the miners called it because of the gray dust that fell from the sky like snow. The dust got into everything: clothes, food, lungs. The miners joked that they would cough up for the rest of their lives. 300 humans worked on the station. They operated the heavy machines that pulled metal from the ground. They fixed the equipment when it broke. They lived in small rooms and ate bad food and counted the days until they could go home. They were not soldiers, they were workers, ordinary people doing ordinary jobs. That was about to change. Was the station manager. He was 55 years old with a round face and tired eyes. He had taken this job because it paid well and asked little. He had a wife back on Earth and 2 daughters he missed every day. He was supposed to retire next year. He was in his office when the alarm started. The sound cut through the station like a scream. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Ran to the control room, his heart pounding. "What's happening?" he demanded. Song was already at the sensors. She was 28, small and thin, with quick hands and a quicker mind. She had joined the station as an engineer because she loved machines more than people. Now she stared at the screen with a face like ash. "Ships," she said, 47 of them coming fast." "Whose ships?" Turned to look at him. Her eyes were empty. The word spread through the station like poison. Everyone knew what that meant. The swarm did not conquer. They did not negotiate. They collected. They took living beings from across the galaxy and used them. Labor, experiments, worse. No one who was taken by the ever came back. The alien workers on the station panicked immediately. They ran for the escape pods, pushing and screaming. Some of them trampled others in their rush to flee. Watch them go, he knew the truth. The escape pods were too slow. They would catch them easily. Running meant capture, staying meant capture. There was no good choice. But then he thought about his wife, his daughters. He thought about the 300 humans on this station who had come here to work, not to die. And something changed in him, something hard and cold and ancient. He opened a channel to every human on the station. "This is," he said. His voice was steady. He did not know how. "You all know what's coming. You all know what to do. We have 18 hours before the rescue fleet arrives. They will be here in 2." He paused. Around him, humans were gathering. Miners, engineers, cooks, cleaners, ordinary people with ordinary faces. "We have a choice," continued. "We can run, we can hide, we can wait to be taken, or we can fight." "Fight with what?" someone asked. "We don't have weapons." Looked at the mining equipment around him. Cutting lasers meant to slice through rock, drills that could punch through metal, explosives used to clear tunnels. "We have plenty of weapons," he said. "We just need to use them differently." The humans looked at each other. Fear was in their eyes, but something else was there too, something that had been sleeping for a long time. "I'm not asking you to win," said. "I'm asking you to make them pay for every single one of us they try to take. I'm asking you to show them that humans don't go quietly. I'm asking you to fight." Silence. Then a man stepped forward. He was old, maybe 60, with gray hair and hands. His name was. He had been a soldier once, 20 years ago, before he became a maintenance worker. "I've been waiting my whole life for someone to ask me that," said. He picked up a cutting laser and checked its power level. "Tell me where to point this thing." One by one, the humans stepped forward, young and old, men and women, strong and weak. None of them were soldiers, all of them were human. "All right," said, "let's get to work." The next 2 hours were chaos. Humans ran through the station, setting traps. They welded doors shut. They rigged explosives in corridors. They turned the mining equipment into weapons that no one had ever imagined. Song worked without rest. She rewired systems, created false signals, and programmed the station's machines to fight on their own. Her hands bled from the work. She did not stop. When the ships arrived, they expected an easy harvest. They had done this 1,000 times before. Land, collect, leave, simple. They were not prepared for what they found. The first boarding party entered through the main airlock. 20 soldiers, tall and thin, with too many arms and teeth like needles. They moved fast, expecting frightened prey. The corridor exploded around them. Had rigged the charges himself. The blast killed 8 instantly and wounded 5 more. Before the survivors could react, cutting lasers fired from hidden positions. The beams sliced through armor like paper. In the control room, watch the sensors. More were coming, many more. They're sending another wave, he reported. 40 soldiers, coming through Section 7. Section 7 is ready, replied a voice. It was Han, a 30-year-old chemist who had never held a weapon in her life. We're waiting for them. They entered Section 7 expecting resistance. They found an empty corridor. They moved forward carefully, checking every corner. Then pressed a button, and the atmosphere vented. They were pulled into space, screaming in frequencies that humans could not hear. 20 more enemies gone in seconds. But they kept coming. They learned from their losses. They adapted their tactics. They sent more soldiers, better equipped, more careful. And the humans adapted too. When they blocked the obvious traps, the humans created new ones. When they found the hidden positions, the humans moved. When they thought they had won a corridor, the humans collapsed the ceiling on their heads. Hour after hour the battle continued. Humans died. The station became a maze of blood and fire and broken bodies. In Section 12, Han found herself surrounded. 15 soldiers closed in on her position. Her weapon was empty. Her escape routes were blocked. She looked at the reactor controls beside her. She looked at the coming closer. She thought about her parents back on Earth, who would never know how she died. Then she smiled. "You want to collect me," she said to the. They did not understand her words, but they saw her hands moving toward the controls. They saw her smile, and for the first time they felt something like fear. "Come and get me," whispered. She overloaded the reactor. The explosion took out Section 12 and everything in it. 60 soldiers died in that moment. Han died with them, still smiling. The battle lasted 18 hours. When the fleet finally arrived, they found a station in ruins. Smoke poured from broken sections. Bodies floated in the corridors. The air smelled like burning metal and death. But in the center of the station, 263 humans still stood, wounded, exhausted, covered in blood that was not always their own. They had lost 40 of their people. They had destroyed 11 ships. They had killed over 300 soldiers. And not a single human had surrendered. The commander stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. His crystalline body flickered with colors that meant confusion, shock, and something close to fear. "This is impossible," he said. "They had no weapons, no training, no military support." His assistant pulled up the recordings from the station's cameras. Images of humans fighting with mining tools. Images of traps made from spare parts. Images of Han smiling before she died. "What are these creatures?" the commander whispered. On the station sat against a broken wall. His arm was bleeding. His ribs were probably cracked. He was 60 years old and felt like 100. But he was alive, and they were gone. Walked over and sat beside him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "We did it," finally said. His voice was hoarse from shouting orders. "Did you ever doubt we would?" Laughed. It hurt his throat, but he laughed anyway. "Every single second," he admitted. Smiled. It was the same smile had worn. The same smile that would soon become famous across the galaxy. "That's the secret," he said. "We're always afraid, we just don't let it stop us." Across the galaxy, the recording spread. Billions of beings watched humans fight and die and refused to give up. They watched ordinary workers become warriors. They watched a species that had been classified as harmless tear apart one of the most feared forces in known space. The galaxy had made a mistake. They had looked at humanity and seen weakness. Now they were starting to see the truth. The Grand Council chamber on the was built to make visitors feel small. The ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed inside. The walls were covered with the names of every species they had ever judged. Thousands of names, millions of years of history. Ambassador stood at the center of the chamber, feeling something he had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. Around him sat the full Galactic Tribunal. All 12 representatives were present. They had not gathered like this in 50 years. The last time was when the swarm had threatened to expand beyond their territory. That crisis had taken a decade to resolve. This crisis was different. This crisis was about humans. I have reviewed the recordings from began. His crystal body was dim today. He had not been able to brighten it since he first saw the footage. What happened there should not have been possible. He waved his hand and images appeared in the air above him. The tribunal watched in silence as humans fought and died. They saw firing a mining laser at soldiers twice his size. They saw Song hacking into systems while explosions shook the walls around her. They saw Han smile. She knew she was going to die, said quietly. She knew there was no escape, and she smiled. Perhaps she was insane, suggested a delegate from the Marsh Collective. His body was made of living water, constantly shifting and flowing. Perhaps, agreed, but the others smiled too. When they were wounded, when they were dying, when they should have been begging for mercy, they smiled. He pulled up more footage. Human after human facing death with that same expression, not happiness, something else, something the aliens did not have a word for. What does it mean? Asked a delegate from the Crystal Mines, a species of living computers. Was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, he admitted, and that frightens me. The tribunal erupted in noise. Delegates argued with each other in a dozen languages. Some demanded that humanity be reclassified immediately. Others insisted that was a fluke, a lucky accident that would never happen again. Finally, the eldest delegate spoke. She was from a species so old that no one remembered their original name. They called themselves the First, and they had been watching the galaxy since before most stars were born. We must learn more, she said. Her voice was soft, but it silenced the chamber instantly. Send teams to Earth, study their history, understand what they are. Only then can we judge them properly. And so they sent their researchers to Earth. Doctor was waiting for them when they arrived. He was Earth's diplomatic liaison now, the human chosen to explain humanity to the galaxy. It was a job he had never wanted and could not refuse. Welcome to Earth, he said to the team. There were 5 of them, each one an expert in studying primitive species. They looked at the humans around them with the same expression people use when looking at interesting insects. Did not let it bother him. He had a job to do. You want to understand us, he said. I will show you everything, our history, our culture, our wars, but I warn you now, you will not like what you see. They did not believe him. They had studied thousands of species. They had seen violence before. They had seen death before. How bad could human history possibly be? They found out in the first hour. Took them to a museum in Seoul. It was dedicated to a war that had happened on this peninsula alone, decades before humans reached the stars. The researchers walked through exhibits showing soldiers frozen in snow, children starving in bombed cities, families torn apart by a line drawn on a map. This was one war, explained. In one small part of our world, millions died. They said nothing. Their crystals had gone dark. Continued the tour. He showed them the trenches of a war that killed 20 million. He showed them camps where humans had murdered other humans by the millions for no reason except hate. He showed them cities turned to shadows by weapons that split atoms. You did this to yourselves, a researcher whispered. Your own species. Yes, replied. Why? Thought about the question. It was a question humans had been asking themselves for thousands of years. Because we could. he said finally. Because we were angry or afraid or greedy. Because we believed different things or looked different ways or simply lived on the wrong side of a river. We killed each other for every reason you can imagine and many you cannot. He led them to another exhibit. This one showed something different. Humans helping each other after disasters. Humans risking their lives to save strangers. Humans building and healing and creating beauty in the middle of destruction. But we also did this, said. Every time we destroyed ourselves, we rebuilt. Every time we fell, we got back up. We are not a peaceful species. We are not a kind species, but we are a species that survives, no matter what, no matter how. The researchers spent 3 months on Earth. They studied human history in detail. They learned about ice ages that should have killed humanity, plagues that wiped out half the population, wars that burned entire continents, disasters that would have ended any other species. Humans had survived them all. Not just survived, thrived, grown stronger, learned from their mistakes at least sometimes, built civilizations on the ashes of the old ones. The researchers returned with their report. It was the longest report ever submitted to the tribunal. It took 3 days just to present the summary. Humans are not what we thought, the lead researcher told the tribunal. We classified them based on their physical weakness. This was an error. Their bodies are fragile, yes, but their minds are something else entirely. She showed images from human history. Warriors fighting against impossible odds. Scientists working for years on problems everyone said were unsolvable. Artists creating beauty in the darkest times. They have a concept they call persistence, the researcher explained. It means they do not stop, ever, not when they are tired, not when they are hurt, not when they are dying, they simply do not stop. She showed footage from again. This time, the tribunal watched differently. They saw the same determination in those miners that they now recognized from human history. Han was not insane, the researcher said. She was being human. When humans face death, they do not surrender, they fight. And if they cannot fight, they make sure their enemy pays for killing them. This is not madness. This is what they are. The tribunal was silent for a long time. Finally, Ambassador spoke. His crystal body was flickering with colors that meant deep thought. What category should we assign them? I do not know if our categories apply, the researcher admitted. They are weak individually, but together they are strong. They are short-lived, but they accomplish more in 80 years than some species accomplish in 1,000. They are primitive technologically, but they adapt faster than any species we have ever studied. She paused. If I had to choose, I would say Category 2, potentially dangerous under certain circumstances. Category 2, a delegate from the Empire laughed. It was an ugly sound. For a species of soft, weak, short-lived creatures, you are afraid of your own shadow. The researcher turned to face the delegate. Her expression was calm. The thought the same thing, she said. Ask them how well that worked. The tribunal voted. Category 7 was removed. Category 2 was assigned, with a note recommending further study. Back on Earth, Admiral received the news. She was in her hidden facility beneath the Korean peninsula, surrounded by screens showing ships being built in secret. They upgraded us, her assistant reported. Category 2 now. Nodded slowly. Good, but not good enough. Ma'am. They're still underestimating us. Pulled up a display showing the true size of Project Ember. 300 ships now, with more being built every day. Category 2 means they think we might be dangerous. Might, under certain circumstances. She smiled. It was the same smile that Han had worn, the same smile that was becoming humanity's signature. Let them keep thinking that, she said. Let them believe we're only a little dangerous. Let them believe we're still weak. She turned back to her screens. By the time they learn the truth, it will be far too late. The Empire did not follow rules. They did not care about treaties or categories or diplomatic protocols. They cared about one thing only, power, and they took it wherever they found it. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching recordings from for the 100th time. His body was massive, covered in scales the color of dried blood. He had 4 arms, each one strong enough to tear metal. He had killed more enemies than he could count. And he was curious about humans. They fought well, he admitted to his officers, for primitives. They were lucky, his second replied, though were careless. Perhaps. Vex watched Han smile on the screen. He watched her reach for the reactor controls. He watched her die. Or perhaps there is something more to these creatures. He had made a decision. They needed to know what humans really were. Were they a threat to be destroyed, or a resource to be collected? Either way, Vex would find out. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. We demand a trial of worth. The trial of worth was an ancient tradition. When they encountered a new species, they offered a choice: submit and become servants of the Empire, or fight and prove the right to remain free. The trial was simple. 5 champions from each side would fight until one side was completely defeated. No weapons except what each species was born with. No tricks, no surrender. They had never lost a trial of worth, not once in 10,000 years. On Earth, the message caused chaos. The government argued for days. Some wanted to refuse the trial and risk war. Others wanted to submit and hope for mercy. No one believed that 5 humans could defeat 5 warriors. No one except Captain Park. She walked into the emergency council meeting without an invitation. Guards tried to stop her. She walked past them like they were not there. I volunteer, she said. The council stared at her. President, an old man who had led Earth through the years since first contact, leaned forward. You volunteer to die? He asked. I volunteer to win. That's impossible. They are twice our size, 3 times our strength. They have fought 1,000 trials and never lost. Smiled. It was the smile that humans were becoming known for. They've never fought us. She chose her team carefully. Lieutenant Lee, because no one could think faster under pressure. Sergeant Moon, because she had been Special Forces before joining the space program and knew 100 ways to hurt someone bigger than herself. Dr. Shin, because she had studied biology and knew their weaknesses better than they did, and because he had already proven himself on. You're not all soldiers, told them before they left Earth. Some of you have never been in a real fight. That's okay. They expect soldiers. They expect people who fight like they do. We're going to give them something different. What? Asked. Humans. The trial took place on a dead moon in neutral space. No atmosphere, no life, just gray rock under a black sky. Billions of viewers across the galaxy watched through drones that floated above the battlefield. The 5 champions stood in a line. They were massive, each one nearly 3 meters tall. Their scales gleamed in the harsh light. Their eyes burned with confidence. They had won trials like this more times than they could remember. The 5 humans stood across from them, small, soft, weak. They laughed. This is what Earth sends, the largest called out. His name was, and he had killed over 200 opponents in his career. Old men, small women, this is an insult. Stepped forward, she was half size. She looked up at him without fear. You can surrender now, she said. We won't think less of you. His laughter stopped. For a moment he was too shocked to speak. Then his face twisted with rage. I will tear you apart with my own hands, he promised. You can try. The signal to begin sounded. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. They expected the humans to attack. That was how combat worked. 2 sides charged each other and the stronger side won. The humans did not charge. Instead, they spread out. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully planned. When rushed toward, she was not there. When he turned to find her was behind him. When he spun to face, attacked his leg with a strike that should not have hurt. But it did hurt, had told them exactly where to hit. They had nerve clusters in their legs that their own species did not know about. A strike to the right spot caused pain that no amount of strength could overcome. Fell to one knee, roaring in shock. The humans did not give him time to recover. They fought as a team, covering each other, creating openings, never staying still. When a grabbed one of them, another was there to break the grip. When a cornered one, two others attacked from behind. They were stronger, faster, tougher. But the humans were smarter, and they fought dirty. Climbed one's back and covered his eyes while struck his knees. Used the low gravity to launch himself at faces and throats. Called out weaknesses in real time, guiding her teammates to spots that caused maximum pain. And was everywhere. She moved through the battle like water, striking and retreating, drawing attention and vanishing. She taunted them in their own language, which she had learned specifically for this moment. She called them slow, weak, embarrassing. They grew angrier. Anger made them sloppy. Sloppy gave the humans more openings. One by one they fell. The first went down after 20 minutes, unable to stand on legs that no longer worked properly. The second fell trying to catch, who led him into a trap where all 5 humans attacked at once. The third and fourth fell together, overwhelmed by coordinated strikes to every weakness they did not know they had. Only remained. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. His arms hung heavy. His eyes were wild with rage and something else, something he had never felt before in a fight. Fear faced him alone. Her team stood back watching. This was her moment. "You can surrender now," she said again. "No one would blame you." Spat blood on the ground. "Do not surrender. Neither do humans." They fought for 10 more minutes, was still stronger, still faster, but was patient. She let him exhaust himself. She took hits that would have broken normal bones, but her bones had been strengthened years ago for exactly this kind of situation. She waited. And when finally made a mistake, she was ready. She hit him in the throat, the one spot on it that was truly vulnerable, the one spot that had told her about months ago. Fell, he tried to rise, he could not. Stood over him, breathing hard. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye. Her body ached in ways she would feel for months. But she was standing, and he was not. "Do you yield?" she asked. Stared up at her. In his eyes, she saw 1,000 years of dominance crumbling. She saw everything he believed about his species and hers falling apart. "I yield," he whispered. The galaxy watched in silence. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds saw 5 humans defeat 5 champions. They saw the impossible happen. The ambassador stared at his screen. "Category 2, he said quietly. "We gave them Category 2. His assistant said nothing. There was nothing to say. On the flagship, Commander Vex watched the recording end. His scales had gone pale. His 4 hands were shaking. "What are they?" he asked no one. On Earth, Admiral raised a glass in her secret facility. "2, she said to her team, "and to the galaxy, who still has no idea what's coming." She drank. Outside, the shipyards continued their work. The fleet continued to grow. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy, but they were only getting started. 3 years after the trial of Worth, the galaxy was different. Humans were no longer ignored. They were watched, studied, feared. Some species sent diplomats, hoping to build alliances with these strange creatures who refused to die. Others sent spies, trying to learn their secrets. And some, like sent fleets. The swarm had not forgotten. They had not forgotten the 300 soldiers killed by miners with cutting lasers. They had not forgotten the shame of being defeated by Category 7 primitives. They wanted revenge, and they were willing to burn everything to get it. Admiral stood in the command center beneath Earth, watching sensor data scroll across her screens. She was 63 now. Her hair was completely white. Her face looked like it had been carved from stone. She had spent the last 8 years building humanity's secret weapon, and now she was about to use it. "How many ships?" she asked. 4,000, her assistant replied. "The entire armada. They're not just attacking, they're trying to wipe us out." Nodded slowly. 4,000 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled against a single species. They had decided that humanity was a threat that needed to be eliminated permanently. They were right, but they had waited too long. "Activate Project Ember," ordered. "All ships, all stations, everything we have." Across the solar system, hidden panels opened. Asteroids split apart to reveal shipyards that should not have existed. Stations that looked abandoned came to life with lights and weapons. And from the darkness of space, ships appeared. 300 warships, each one designed by humans, each one built in secret, each one equipped with technology that no alien had ever seen. The sensors went crazy. One moment, Earth had no military fleet. The next moment, it had one of the largest in the galaxy. "Impossible," the commander hissed. "Where did they come from?" No one answered. The humans were already moving. The Battle of Saul lasted 6 days. Captain Park commanded the defense from the bridge of humanity's flagship, the Persistent. She was 45 now, promoted to admiral after the trial of Worth. But today she wanted to be in the fight, not behind a desk. "All ships report ready," reported from beside her. He had followed her to the Persistent without being asked. They had fought together too long to separate now. "Then let's show them who they're dealing with." The human fleet hit the armada like a hammer. They used tactics no species had ever seen before. Small ships darted between massive vessels, hitting weak points and vanishing before they could be targeted. Larger ships worked in groups, coordinating their fire with precision that they could not match. Because humans had been fighting wars for 10,000 years, they had studied every battle ever recorded. They had learned every trick, every strategy, every mistake, and they had spent 8 years preparing for exactly this moment. They lost 500 ships in the first hour. But they had 4,000, and they kept coming. "They're pushing toward Earth," warned. "If they reach the planet." "They won't," promised. She pushed the fleet harder. Ships that were damaged kept fighting. Crews that should have retreated stayed in position. Humans died by the hundreds, but they took thousands of with them. On the third day, they broke through the outer defense line. 100 ships made it past the human fleet and headed straight for Earth. "Activate the planetary defense grid," ordered from below. Earth itself came alive. Weapons hidden on every continent fired into space. Satellites that had seemed harmless revealed themselves as armed platforms. The moon base, which the aliens had been told was just a research station, opened up with weapons powerful enough to crack a small planet. The 100 ships became 50, then 20, then none. But the battle was not over. On the 5th day, they changed tactics. They stopped trying to reach Earth and focused on destroying the human fleet. Ship by ship, they tried to grind humanity down. The Persistent took heavy damage on the 5th day. 3 decks were destroyed. Half the crew was dead or wounded. Herself had been injured when an explosion threw her across the bridge. She refused to leave her command chair. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked through gritted teeth. 112, replied. His arm was in a sling. Blood was drying on his face. "They have about 1,500. The math was not good, but had never been good at giving up. "Then we need to make every shot count." On the 6th day, something changed. The commander looked at his sensor data and felt something he had not felt since: fear. His fleet had started with 4,000 ships. Now he had less than 1,000. The humans had lost over 200 ships, but they had destroyed more than 3,000 of his. His commanders were begging to retreat. His soldiers were refusing to board human vessels after what had happened to the first boarding parties. His entire armada was on the edge of collapse. And the humans were still fighting. How, he whispered, how are they doing this? On the Persistent, saw the formation wavering. She saw ships hesitating. She saw the moment coming. All ships, she broadcast. One final push, everything you have, make them remember this day forever. The human fleet attacked, not with desperation but with purpose. They hit from every angle. They targeted command ships. They drove wedges into formations. They fought like they had nothing to lose. Because they didn't. They were fighting for their home, their families, their species. There was nothing more important. The broke. At first it was just a few ships turning and running. Then more. Then entire squadrons. The commander screamed orders, but no one was listening. His fleet fled into hyperspace, leaving behind over 3,000 wrecked ships and the shattered remains of pride. Humanity had won. On the Persistent sat in silence. Around her, crew members were cheering, crying, hugging each other, but she was quiet. She was thinking about the friends she had lost, the ships that would never come home, the price that had been paid. "We did it," said softly. "We did," agreed. She looked out the viewport at the debris field that had once been an enemy fleet. "But we need to make sure we never have to do it again." Weeks later, Ambassador arrived at Earth. His crystal body was dim with something that might have been shame. He stood before the United Earth Council, surrounded by humans who watched him with calm eyes. These were not the same creatures he had dismissed 8 years ago. These were survivors of the greatest battle in galactic history. "I come to apologize," said. "We categorized you incorrectly. We saw your fragility and missed your resilience. We saw your short lives and missed your urgency. We saw your weakness and missed your will." Doctor responded for humanity. He was 50 now, with more gray hair than black. He had spent years explaining humans to aliens. Now he was finally being heard. "We understand," he said. "Most species look at us and see what we lack. They don't see what we are." "And what are you?" Thought about the question. He thought about Han smiling before she died. He thought about Park refusing to leave her bridge. He thought about every human who had ever been told they couldn't and did anyway. "We're survivors," he said, "and we protect our own." The Galactic Tribunal officially reclassified humanity. Category 1. Not a threat to be contained, but a force to be respected. Equal partners in galactic society. On Earth, there were celebrations. In the hidden facilities, there was quiet satisfaction. And in space, the rebuilt human fleet stood guard over a planet that would never be helpless again. Admiral retired 3 years later. She had done her job. Humanity was safe. Admiral Park took her place. She was 50 now, with gray streaks in her hair and scars that would never fully heal. She stood on the observation deck of the new flagship, the Undaunted, and looked out at the stars. Stood beside her. He was 73, too old for combat, but he had refused to leave her side. They had been through too much together. "Think there's anything out there that can actually stop us?" he asked. Considered the question. She thought about human history, every war, every disaster, every time someone had said humanity was finished, and every time they had been wrong. "Maybe," she said, "but I wouldn't bet on it." The Undaunted powered up its engines. Around it, a fleet of humanity's finest ships prepared for the first extragalactic exploration mission in history. They were going beyond the galaxy, beyond everything known, into the complete unknown. And they were not afraid. They never had been. Some species conquered through strength, others through technology, others through numbers. Humanity conquered through something simpler, something that no alien had ever truly understood. The absolute refusal to stay down. The Undaunted jumped to hyperspace, carrying humanity into the future. Whatever was out there, they would face it. Whatever tried to stop them, they would overcome. because that was what humans did. That was what humans had always done. And nothing in the universe was going to change that.